Hello and a very warm welcome. Hemant and Roopa are with me to have a conversation on a topic that I'm unsure of as of right now. But I've been consuming a lot of news from different places of late. Uh, 20% of it is good news at times. People doing some great work. They are a single person would have planted a forest kind of thing. There are people helping other people who are unwell, or people doing a lot of good work for 20 years, 25 years, and the results thereof. Uh, 80% is about the leaders of the world, and something that last few topics also have been somehow coming around this topic. Uh, the state of the nation, the state of the world, the immediate uh, environment that I am in, where I hear individual problems and I'm aware of my own problems at times, uh, practical issues, uh, affecting people very deeply as I see the connection mentally and physically at times. Of late, I have been thinking a lot about this connection as well. Uh, so the topic that was running in my head was, I have called this channel the Values Workshop. I've received a lot of love, and a lot of people seem to resonate with the topics that we have. And the guests themselves have, like you, have come and narrated stories of uh, intimate experiences in that sense of understanding values or challenges that you've had. But today, while I was setting up, I was thinking, are these, uh, just more uh, literal things to write down or speak about, the right things to say, moral science lectures? Do they have any practical standing in a world which is showing us that might is right in most places? Uh, I have uh, I have a lot of softer ideas about it, but I cannot deny that there are days when I'm down and I think, are we really losing the war uh, to what I perceive as wrong, or rather might, or power, or uh, complete degradation of values in every sense of the term. Um, Hemant, you want to comment on this? I don't have a clear explanation of the topic, but this is the state of mind that I'm coming from.
Uh, I think first of all, I'm deeply grateful to you and Rupa to make this space for all three of us to co-sense and maybe co-discover some of the things. So,
Yeah. Can you speak up a little more?
Gigi, is this better?
I think you will have to improve your own voice level.
Okay, I'll try. Uh, okay, is this better?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. Um, So, some of these questions I feel are so, sometimes the framing of the questions and the framing of problem statements is slightly relatively easier than having a short the response to them and, the uh, approach to how do you even begin to understand the question, let alone answering them. Um, I would say that at any given point in time, a lot of things are playing out in our experiences, in our conceptualization, in our articulations, in our motivations, in how I perceive feedbacks that I'm getting from, let's say, from both of you. So there's so much happening in this very moment. And the key question is, what am I aware of? Uh, what am I aware of? If I were to say there is something inside of me and there is something outside of me, and then the dance between the two. And then within that, how do I connect it with things that are not here and now and this, but they are there, then and that. So there is this constant play or dance or connection between here, now, this, and there, then and that. Now, there, then and that could be a cosmology belief that we have, geopolitical issue. So if I were to ask myself, let's say Donald Trump is conducting a very high level meeting at this very moment that you speak. How's that affecting this conversation? Or let's say somebody is going hungry tonight in Syria and doesn't know where the meal is going to come from. How is it affecting this conversation? Or what has happened to me in the morning at 9 o'clock when I had my breakfast? How is that affecting the conversation? So I believe as human being, my personal experiences, as humans, we do not have the awareness and the bandwidth to capture the enormity that we are and we are becoming, or we want things to be. So that's my first submission. And then what happens? So the question is, okay, so what happens when we don't have these awareness and these bandwidth and this grasp? I think the easiest thing is to default to kleshas in some sense, avidya, asmita, rag, dvesh, abhinivesh, sort of in the sense illusion of knowledge, false ego, uh, unreflected desires and motivations, wrong kind of comparisons, and the ultimate fear of death. How does it play out in every moment, in various. So I'll halt here. I think my my thing is that uh, we have narrow awareness, narrow bandwidth, and in absence of doing anything with that, we default to some borrowed uh, concepts and unreflected conceptualizations. I'll halt here.
Rupa, I think Hemant has tripped me also, so you can react to that.
Um, yeah, I was meanwhile thinking about the question. It was a very interesting perspective you gave, Hemant. Uh, but when you asked the question, what first crossed my mind was one, I try and avoid news for that very reason. I stay away from news as much as possible, headlines occasionally, and that's it. Otherwise, I try not to put my energies and thoughts about all the negativity, so-called negativities of the world. Then again, I should say it's us who qualify something as being good or bad. Intrinsically, it just is. Trump is being Trump, and the other whoever other country leader is being himself. They're just being who they are and doing what they want to do. It's we who qualify, oh, this works and that doesn't work, and this is good and that is not good. So it's somewhere I think it helps. How are we going to process all of this is we can't personally go about changing them, yes, of course, but how we can deal with it for our own sanity to begin with is one is to avoid qualifying it one way or the other. So then that way, that is half the problem sorted. The other half is somewhere you trying to be yourself and doing the best you can given the situation. So you can't feed the hungry person in Syria, but if you see a local hungry person, feed that person. You can just be yourself and work with your immediate circumstances and environments. So it's like the story about that, making a difference to that one starfish. It's
Yeah,
quite a common story.
yeah.
So it's just working with that level, the little boy throwing just a few of the thousands that are stranded on the beach. What's the point? There are thousands that are anyway going to die. You're saving only 10 of them. I saved 10 of them because that's all I could do. So, that's at least at this point in time, that's all I can do. And if I focus on just doing that, it is that much better for me than worrying about what will I do if this happens and what will do that there's an economic collapse and this and that. Prophesizing and expecting the worst isn't going to do any better anyway,
Wonderful.
if
Uh,
that helps.
I have a question from something you said now triggered one point that Hemant made is borrowed wisdom, or rather borrowed ideas of what is affecting me right now, since I am unaware of a lot of these things that he spoke of, internally, externally. Uh, so this is a little different from the what we've been talking so far. So Hemant, my question specifically is, when it is not borrowed, what really happens on the inside? So let me explain this so the viewers also get a hang of what I'm trying to get at. Um, so my intellect is fueled by what I know today, what I have known earlier, uh, from from social media, from uh, sources of education, through people, through books, through videos. All of that makes me quote unquote knowledgeable about a certain fact, or or certain aspect. Fact is too strong a term. Certain aspect of knowledge that I think I have a handle on in terms of understanding it. Now, in absence, if I am seeing all of this as borrowed, because yes, I cannot deny that this has come from some connection either I have made through somebody, or reading something, or hearing something, and I have arrived at that understanding in that moment. If that is not what is operating according to you because of lack of self awareness of any kinds that you mentioned, what is operating is my question to you. If you could, uh, I know there are, we will run out of words, but in case you can help us understand the experience that you go through uh, when you are able to be aware, what is the difference between borrowed and unborrowed, original, or what is arising within us?
So one of the things that comes up for me, Bunty, as you put that out, is first of all, I believe there are, any, if I look at any word, my experience with words have layers of meanings.
Yes.
There could be something that we have a shared meaning of, or there could be something where you go deeper and you do some kind of archaeology of the word or the concept. And once you do that, you go deeper and try and understand how is this word, where is this word finding a place inside of you, in your own experiences, in your own body, in your own emotions, in your own desires, pursuits, whatever. So I think the first step that I at least has helped me in is earlier I would just take a word, take a concept, uh, throw jargons in meeting, try to impress people, and it worked
Yeah.
to some extent. But ever so, I would feel very hollow inside. I would feel very something eluding my grasp, something which I could not have a depth of. I could not explain. And I think over the years, I think what has helped is, while I may still use the word borrowed, but what borrowed meant to me 13, 14, 15 years back is very different from what it means to me right now. Uh, Specifically, it would say that it would mean that, uh, let's take the case of news, um, in editorial rooms, it says that if it bleeds, it leads. That's how you get headlines, and then you get TRPs, and now you have virality on social media. That may have a place, that has a cosmology. I don't want to be judgmental about it. It helps somebody, it doesn't help somebody, it affects somebody, and each person has a coping mechanism or a relationship with how you deal with it, depending on what you want to do, what you can do, as Rupa very beautifully pointed out. So, uh, I think what happens is, over a period of time, you get to a point which I think in the earlier interactions also, we came at this crossroad, that if in some sense I were to say that let's try and understand human being or a human journey or my own journey, and if I were to say that there is a filter I can use, that I think, I feel, I say, I do. I'm a think, feel, say, do species. in some broad term. They are placeholders. In earlier times, my ongoing experience would be that I'm thinking something, I'm feeling something else, I'm saying something, and I'm doing something else. And there's a lot of misalignment between all four. And I did not know how to manage it. It was left to me how to manage it, and it would show up in form of my reactions. I would be very reactive. I won't be responsive. I won't have space to understand the other. So over a period of time, I think the first thing that happens is you try and have a slightly different awareness of how you're thinking about something, feeling about something, what you're saying about it. And have you done them and then saying, or are you just saying because you want to get some nods or validations from someone? In that sense, I think they don't remain borrowed. You still use those words, but they're now integrated differently inside of you. I would halt here, and if there is anything that you want to chime in.
I have two conflicting questions in my head, but I'll go with the one that came first, Rupa. So it's exactly at the opposite end of the spectrum of what Hemant just spoke, but because of something that he said, very often when I was growing up, English not being my natural way of expression, I was just growing. I loved the language, read a lot, and understood a lot of concepts. Was very happy being with the language for a long time, and yet. In my younger days, when I fumbled for a word, one of the things I understood as a writer is that you actually know the precise feeling you want to communicate, but you may not have the word. And sometimes you compromise, you use a easier word, or you use a word so that the other person would understand the nearbyness of that concept, but it is still not the same word. And I have spent, in my initial days, I spent sleepless nights searching for that word, because what is it that I want to say in my communication that I was doing. Over a period, Hemant and I were talking while we were waiting for you. So I was mentioning that how is one sure about what one does not know? What is the assurance that I know what I know is right about, since I am talking about concepts which are not easily understood by me, forget communicating them. So my question in short is, have there been times when you have a feeling and you don't have the word and word or words, and there is, unfortunately, words are double-edged swords where they create conflicts as much as they resolve things. They are understood, misinterpreted, deliberately, sometimes unknowingly, but yet they are not easy to deal with, especially in conflict-laden situations. The conflict could be very small, as much as a small family tiff, two nations fighting each other. And so my question to you, when you do not have the word for yourself, how do you accept that truth, and how do you communicate that truth? Is it possible at all?
Yeah, like you rightly said, words come with their own baggages sometimes, and they are more a hindrance rather than a help in communicating something effectively. And more so, I think younger languages, like any of the Western language, like English, is a much more younger language rather than any of the more ancient language, I think, which have more finesse in the sense of how they convey something. But language apart, sometimes it is, like you rightly say, it is difficult to sometimes precisely communicate what you're feeling. It's so much going on breadth-wise and depth-wise that you can't find enough words, and language is generally failing. It'll be easier if we sort of telepathically communicated. That would be the ultimate answer for conveying whatever we want to convey, without missing out anything and giving the true essence of what you really want to deliver. Till we can come to mastering telepathic skills, other than using the failing language to the best of your ability as possible, I think it is more living it out, experientially living it out through your actions, to your behavior. I think they go much more depths in conveying what it is that you want to convey rather than just mere words and talking. So I always feel somebody's experience conveys way more. Somebody's first-hand, yeah, I can't think of a better word than experience. Their first-hand account of something that is in their life, in their time and life, conveys way more experientially rather than through words. So if you can maybe talk through somebody else's experience, maybe you can come close to explaining what one would need to explain rather than saying, oh, I read this and I think this is what it is and you should do, or I suggest you do. You say, oh, this person did this and this is what they were at and this is where they got to. That sort of experientially bringing somebody's thing is a bit more better accepted, because somewhere I think we humans are storytellers and we respond to stories quite well in terms of remembering things or understanding things. So making it a narrative like that is a much more effective way of communicating, especially where you're stuck for words.
Okay. Uh, okay, one clarification. I thought you were going somewhere else, but when you used the last few sentences, I understood what you were getting at. So, my clarification is it's not how we got the words, it could be through reading or hearing. Uh, so, you and I are talking. In fact, this itself is a question that kind of explains what I'm trying to. The idea is that you haven't found the word in that moment of as is. Uh, all of us have limited time with each other, whether it is a Zoom call or in person. Even if we are living together for the next 25 years, there is a limitation of time, limitation of understanding, limitation of communication. So my question comes from, can we trust the truth to my truth to reach you in spite of not having the words? I'm just parking it at a space where it is more easier to comprehend. But that was my idea. So if two individuals are trying to get to each other in some manner, is there something that can be said? Whereas I will also buy what you said, because a friend of mine was explaining to me something that people in Israel were going through at this point of time. And while I have been very strongly against what has been happening in the world and what has been done with the children on the Palestinian side, but that guy was the victim at that point of time, and whoever was explaining to him. And for the first time in this entire 2 years, for a second I paused. I said, there could be another person who's equally suffering, who's not the government, he's not in power, he is not even talking about hurting the other side, he's just talking about. So it was as simple as he could not go to the toilet thinking that he would not come back alive for whatever experience he had that. So that for a moment it struck me as so human, such a very individual need. So I buy what you said, but my question is far more everydayness. So you and I are talking, and I am trying to say something, and I am bringing this because Hemant put that archaeology of word theory. I have, while I have done this as a writer, and I am comparatively mindful, I would like to think, but there are times when I am completely unaware of what is happening. So when I am unaware, I am still very sure that I don't have to explain, you will get it. So I am asking you, in your experience, has this happened, and if it has, have you resolved it? How do you make your peace with it?
I think if I understand right, it's more down to not so much the words, but the more connection between the individuals that would then matter. For me to know your truth and for you to know my truth, if we know each other as people, which we over the years, you sort of develop a bond and a connection beyond just being friends. It's a much, again, I find it difficult to put a word to it. So,
Yeah.
but for a lack of a better word, a deep bond. I don't think much words need to be spoken. You start saying something, and I get the flow. Oh, that's what Bunty means. And when I start saying something, this is what Rupa generally would mean, and this is where she comes from because I know her beyond this concept and beyond this topic that we are talking. So that sort of communication is much easier. It's more difficult when I'm talking to a person I've met once or twice or never met before. That's where the true trouble is. Then can I convey my truth effectively is the question, which is a difficult one. You try and see where it goes. But with people that you are bonded with and know them intrinsically somehow, I don't think it will be as much an issue.
Hemant, I had a question for you simultaneously at that point only. So one of the answers that comes to me is, I said this and John was laughing in the last episode. Do we have to be patient for the other person to be wiser enough to get what I'm saying? I don't remember what context I said it in, and he laughed out loud. But yeah, my question comes from a deeper place than just the superficial patience. Oh, Hemant is not getting it. Tomorrow he'll get it, or maybe after a few months he will understand what my brilliance is. I'm not coming from that space, not as of right now in this question. While mentioning this to John, I was in that space because that's what I meant. But here, what I mean is trusting life, letting go of your uh, persistence to be understood. Uh, is there anything you would want to say to this term that I'm using, persistence to be understood? Because this morning itself, I have done this mistake twice. Now that I'm talking to you, I'm realizing that I've been okay. This is what I've been trying to say. How does one make peace with unsaid truths, if I were to call it that?
Oh, you're muted. Hemant.
I said I sense a bunch of questions there, not just one. So let me be careful what I understand and what I try and respond. I think so. Three, four, threads that could come at this as a web of answer or a web. One is I'm reminded of an ancient Sanskrit thing which says Shabda Jhalam Maharanyam, which is, language has a tendency to confuse and, and the second thing I'm reminded, there's a very interesting story about Yagnavalkya, a sage Yagnavalkya. He would attend all the kinds of Shastrarth, the contestations of ideas and concepts and cosmologies and belief systems or truths in those days. And one day he was back and he had won that Shastrat that day and he got 1,000 cows as a gift, of winning. He came back, he sat down with his wife and he's lamenting. And he's lamenting the man's abuse of reason, abuse of language. And remember, we're talking about thousands of years back. And that's where I think there is this element in Sanskrit, or at least in Hindi, which is tark, vitark, kutark. So long it is tark and vitark, it's okay. But I think we do not know when we cross the line and it becomes a kutark. The argument for the sake of argument or the argument for the sake of winning would lead invariably us into the lanes of, this disconnect between each other. And not, as Rupa pointed out, I would start seeing you as the other. Right. So that's the second thread. The third thread is a slightly different one, which is, do I understand my own self first? How much do I understand my own self And if I don't understand my own self, and I'm on the journey of understanding my own self and my various nuances in my life, I think the following would happen. I think the more I start understanding, or the better I start understanding my own self, I think I create a space for understanding the other, without words, with or without actions, without intentions. Um, and there is a small poetry that happened to me few years back, which is जब खुद से बिसरे हैं तो एक दूसरे से तीसरे हैं.
Beautiful.
So yeah, I thought.
I was just reminded of the topic that we are talking on, and I was seeing how it connects back to values, and it suddenly struck me that values are not empty and in and of themselves. And the younger version of me was fairly comfortable with breaking rules and being very rebellious and very strongly willed about, uh, like in Bombay se to kya. uh, but now when Hemant was answering, I was thinking what are values are not independent of human beings. They are the reason where I am comfortable that you and I will not harm or hurt each other, and will try and be for each other in a good way. Uh, Maybe have each other's back, uh, even as strangers, even as people, uh, which is also connecting back to my worries about the world per se. How are we going to resolve these are bigger issues and stuff like that? But essentially, values are what keeps a society going and working in a positive way uh, for the multitudes, as many as possible. Obviously, there is no correct answer at any point of time. There can be debates on that, but as long as the intent is there, uh, how does uh, how does one keep a check on one's values that we are? So there is this thing by something that Buddha has said, where he says, you check yourself, and what is good within you, you increase that, and what is akushal within you, what is kushal within you, you increase, what is akushal, you decrease, and that's how you keep practicing. One of the things that he said. Rupa, what is your compass? How do you see whether values don't get drowned in everydayness? Everydayness is not just every day in the technical sense of it, but everydayness of relationships, everydayness of habits, everydayness of oh, this is how I always am. So how does one break that? Or in your case, how do you ensure that you are progressively at least aware? If I do not know what's your procedure, but what do you do about these things?
Yeah, it's a very important question, I guess, in terms of going back. Fundamental is the awareness of what you are, what you call your values to be, and what you pride your to have the values in, and all of that. So it's more, the first is the self-awareness, knowing your own strengths and weaknesses. I can get quite egotistical when it comes to discussing these topics, or I'm very insecure when it comes to talking on those things, or I'm can be vain in this. So knowing my downsides and my upsides, that is the first place to start for all of us, and all the time. That's the key thing that has to be functioning all the time, non-stop. And it's again something that you have to choose to do it. It's not going to happen automatically, because like you say, the everydayness of everything is overwhelming. It will drown you. That's its purpose. But somewhere, if you are you make an effort to be self-aware, and the effort then becomes second nature, then it is not an effort anymore. You're just naturally self-aware because you are tuned within to yourself, to your thoughts, to your behavior, to your beliefs. That connection has to be there. For you to then, the second half of the journey is to then, do I keep it? Do I leave it? Do I fine tune it? Do I completely let go of it? That sort of dialogue then again happens automatically if this first phase is all sorted. And once that is sorted, then it is just you being honest with yourself. It is not about you trying to put up a show of being a good person to the rest of the world, but where you are keeping up to your parameters of what a good person is, or what a nice person is, or a just person, and all of that. It is your own personal parameter. There is no out there yardstick to measure yourself against and keep up to. So it is ultimately, that's what I believe each of us are meant to do: live our lives honestly to ourselves. That's the first and foremost. People talk about honesty and always in reference to being honest in a situation or to somebody else, but never ever it is ever thought about being honest to yourself. First, you need to be honest with yourself, or anything else, any other values to then come in place. Because if you don't know who you are and what you want to do and what values you choose or don't want to choose, it's all going to be a chaos of sorts, because somebody tells this, somebody else tells you that, this religion tells you this, that organization tells you this. What do you pick and choose? So it's somewhere I would always go back to being self-aware. Am I connected with myself? Do I know what I want in life? Do I what makes me happy? What makes me feel that I have lived a fulfilled life, of a complete life? What am I going to do or not do to die without regrets? And that will then give me the tools to choose the values I want to then have in me, to then be able to achieve that. It's sort of working backwards in a way, and with that honest connection with yourself. I think once this is in place, everything else sort of falls around. And it's a constant state of evaluation and re-evaluation and re-evaluation. It's not that, oh, I've set my value system, I'm all sorted for the rest of my life. That's never going to be the case. Till our last breath, we'll have something to tune and fine tune and reinvent ourselves on, and get better and deeper, richer experiences of life. So it's a lifetime ongoing experience. We can keep it exciting, or we can find it a chore. It's up to us. But then, if you're excited about being honest to yourself, there's no way it will be a chore. It will be a fun thing to do for yourself, because you're doing it for yourself. And there was one story when we were talking earlier about the communication. There was one of the Khalil Gibran's book. It's a short story about how two men were in a debate of sorts, and so X says, "Oh no, no, what you say is completely wrong, and this is how it should be," and all of it. And the Y says, "Oh no, 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 you are completely wrong. This is how it should be, and this and that." So the argument goes for days and for a week, over a week, and so. And at the end of the day, they just call it a draw, and everything sort of, everybody goes their way. But then X goes and burns his sets of books and says, "I think I got it all wrong." Y goes and does the very same thing. Completely burns his knowledge and says, "I think I got it wrong. I can't be sure anymore now after having that debate." So that's us on a day-to-day basis. We have to always keep, you can't be stuck in your ways. That's not beneficial to you or anybody around you. So hope that's answering.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful story. Uh, my books will be eaten by white ants now that I remember. I haven't touched them in days. I have
Knowledgeable white ants you would have in the house.
not in the house. Those are in that place
Acha.
I used to have. I want to contextualize something that she said, and it triggered off something I was listening to last week. So there was this monk that I was listening to, and he was talking about. Uh, I don't remember the term, but being by yourself. I don't remember the term that I'm searching for. Uh, and he said that even if you don't, it was a Buddhist monk, and he was talking about practice. Solitude is the term I've been searching for. So how to be in solitude, or how to cultivate solitude. And he said that there is this mistaken notion by lay practitioners, householders, that just because they are not going to be monks in this life, that this is not a practice that they should cultivate inside. He says it is not about being a monk or not, irrespective of the technicality of enlightenment. I will not go there because that is a different path altogether. He says the more important thing is that you are getting ready for death when you can't move. In that 1 second or 1 millisecond, when your hands and your legs and your body cannot live out that desire that you are any which way cultivating throughout your life, how do you make peace with it? What are you going to be in that moment? How do you reach a point where you are really alone? And he said another interesting thing. He says, all said and done, this whole idea of that we are together is absolutely hogwash, because even if we are together for the rest of our lives, we could be completely disconnected and not connected at all inside us, because this is just a presumption that I understand what you're going through, what you're talking about, or what these words mean. So that was another thing that I thought it was interesting. So my question to you, Hemant, in terms of, she also used a term where you are excited about being honest, or where you're pursuing knowing yourself and being yourself at the cost of everything else. Because every time I get you people to talk about such stuff, the one part of me certainly wakes up and says, hello, what about the fears? You can't be telling the truth to everyone. And it's a conscious effort, and it is a conscious decision many times. There is also your peace with yourself, because you don't want more conflict. So those things are running. Although I have my answers, I am not even denying that this is the requirement, and what you said is absolutely the way to go. But in context of death, in context of we not being here at some point of time, and that 1 second that monk spoke about, Hemant, what are your thoughts on living up to one's values, and how does that help that moment or not help that moment, and where do you see this whole, if you have a 2 by 2, I would be happy about that as well.
I would start with I don't know. And I would attempt to see if I can come up with something which is coherent. I remember Devdutt Patnaik once talking about the distinction between Maryada Purushottam Ram and Leela Purushottam Krishna.
Okay.
So if you look at Maryada Purushottam Ram, there is a certain way in which Ram practices values, and there is a certain way in which Krishna practices values. There is a distinction in how they do that. And I think I would just layer it with another gentleman called Dr. Purushottam Agarwal, who's a contemporary thinker, and he's done extensive research on Mahabharata. I remember one of his talks, he mentioned that no character in Mahabharata is black and white. They're all gray. Everybody is questionable. So I agree with what Roopa is saying, that, pick up any person in your life, you would always find something that you would disagree with, and you would say that there is a values dissonance that the person displays. वो बोलते कुछ है और करते कुछ है. And then if we turn inwards, I think we'll find, at least I find myself a great hypocrite so many times. But then there is something that I have also, tried to, it's my journey. I'm still a student. It's a long journey for maybe I don't know how many lives. But I think one has to then figure out, as Roopa was also saying, that your own self-awareness and what you want from this life. What do you consider this life as, your journey as, and your path as? And then in alignment with that, you make your choices and action and the dailiness of it. So I think these are some of the things that is emerging for me, that even let's say if I were to just say that in this last few minutes that you presented a curiosity and I tried addressing in whatever manner I could. What are the values at play in these 4 minutes? The first realization that I had was I used to feel that, values is a separate field altogether. It's like another galaxy. And then only when I consider that galaxy, then this is. But over the years of practice, I've realized every thought, every action, every choice has values embedded in it, seeping in it, leaking from it. It's just that I'm not aware of it. And as Roopa said, once we start becoming more aware of ourselves, our being and becoming, I think we try and have some kind of a map and then what we want to stand for. And then I think once you start standing for it over a period of time, you find peace with it, you find joy in it, for the sake of being there rather than for any other sake. So I'll hold here.
I think we have run out of time, but there is a nice connect that I found, although you didn't use the term death. It kind of arrived for me because of how you put it, and also contextualizing it with what Rupa kept saying, self-awareness, and it keeps changing. So the idea of that 1 second being important is that you will be what you've always been. And if you are comfortable with that journey, excited about self-awareness and this, so in that moment also the chances of you being that are a lot more than suddenly discovering some and having a hallelujah moment and okay, I've got it. It may not happen, but the journey will continue. And that will give us peace and comfort, like you said, because that is our choice to put ourselves against the parameters that we are learning or we are being aware of. And thank you so much. This has been such a beautiful ending. A thought I would want to stay with. And thank you, Rupa. Thank you, Hemant.
Thank you,
Thank
Rupa.
you so much.
See you soon.
Thank you so much, Hemant. Thank you, Bunty.
Yeah.
For being here.
Bye.